back at it with part 2 of this air ride install rear setup. And something I didn't show you in part 1 is this cross member right here, the second cross member, it's got to come out too. That's specific to the KP Components bolt-in notch. You have to take that one out as well. If you were just welding at a notch, you can leave that one, but this one, the way it bolts up, you have to remove that. And then once the notch is in, we're going to support it with a couple cross beams to get back what those cross members took away as far as support and stuff. So yeah, you'll see that. Right now it kind of looks bare, not a lot of support. We're going to support it after we install the notch and get everything set up. Now with part 1, all the steps that I took to make that happen, that's pretty much everything that you're going to need to do with a weld-in notch. So hey, if you did that, you're already on the right path. But everything I'm going to do today is pretty much specific for the KP Component step notch. It's cold out here.
It's cold out here.
see the cuts that I made. This was the original line, and then I went in 1/4 of an inch and made this line. And the same on this side. So I'm gonna cut on the inside line, and that's why I have this jack stand here, so it'll hold the weight of the rear frame. Seems pretty crazy, right, to cut a frame in half and bolt it all back together. That's what we're doing though, is do it. We've got it cut up. We've got the middle section notched out for the notch, and now we're about to bolt the notch back up. I used some Rust Restore to touch up all of the places that we grinded or any kind of bare metal, and that's dry now, so it's time to bolt back up the notch. I've got the other notch pieces painted right now, and they're drying, so as soon as they're dry, we'll bolt in the bottom section, but hey, it's coming together. One side is almost done. So just to give you a little recap of what's been going on, I originally cut out the little sections to get the notch mounted in there. I marked the holes and then I drilled all the holes for all the bolts. And then once I get it all bolted in, I then marked those center sections right here and then I cut those out. After I got those cut out, I bolted the notch all back in, tightened everything down, and then I put these caps on here. That's what you just saw. These little caps here, and then they'll bolt in, and that's what secures everything and makes it a full notch. All right, we got the notches installed, so we're ready to begin mounting up the bag. So here's where it gets a little bit tricky, right? So as I mentioned in the last video that I did, that we're gonna mount this bag directly to the frame. And the reason we do that is normally there's a metal cup that you attach to this that will give you a gap where your air fitting is. It will give a spacer, so when you do that, that air fitting is not going up against your frame. But for the setup that we're doing here, we want to mount that bag directly on the trailing arm right here and then directly to the frame. That way when the frame compresses, it's gonna push this rear end all the way up into the notch. If that metal cup is here, when this closes, it's gonna stop it and our rear end is only gonna go about this far. Even with that 4-inch block, it's not gonna help us anymore. So what we're gonna do to mount this bag directly to the bottom of this is we've gotta take this little cap that we put on there just a few minutes ago. We've gotta align that to the bottom hole of this trailing arm where the bag mounts up right here. And we've got to mount that directly to this. So what I've done on the factory frame here, there's another hole that's in line with this trailing arm hole. And it's still in the frame. So what I did, last time I tried to eyeball this and I got it really close but had to drill a bigger hole and it was just a little bit of a problem. I mounted all this up and I used a little gray primer to spray right directly at that hole. So then when I take this cap off, I can see where that primer circle is, and then I can drill me a pilot hole, and I know that's directly where this hole needs to line up. And then once I have that center hole in the cap, I can make a template of the top of this bag and then put that template onto that cap centered with that pilot hole that I drilled, and then I'll know where to drill out my screw holes and I'll know where to drill out my air fitting hole to make that air fitting go all the way through the frame. Now I know that might have been a lot of words and a little bit of confusion there, but I'll walk you through those steps. But this is how my mind kind of processes all this. But I'll show you every step of the way. If you're a visual learner like I am, I hope that actually seeing me do that stuff will help you to be able to do it yourself. Now you can see exactly where the center of that hole is. There's a paint circle, and that's going to get us really close to know where the center of the bag is. And once I put that template on there, we'll be able to drill out some other holes and then mount the bag directly to the frame. So we're just going to drill a pilot hole right in the center where that primer was. That way we'll have a center spot when we flip the bracket over, so when we put the template on there. So I was looking around the house for something I could trace on, and since you can't really see through regular paper, I was thinking, what around the house can you use for tracing paper? And I come up with the idea of parchment paper. Might use it for non-stick items around the kitchen, but I think it's going to work perfect for application today, so let's try it out. Now we're just trying to get a rough drawing of the outside of the bag because that really doesn't matter. What matters the most is marking the center of these holes that we're going to use to actually mount the bag, and where we're going to cut out for the air fitting. So as you can see, that's just a rough sketch, and we'll go ahead and cut this out, and then I'll put it back on there and then make any other adjustments that we need. Right there's what we're looking for. Where it bolts in, there's plenty of room for this. So now we have to bolt this back onto the frame and then drill the same holes that we drilled into this into the frame. And then we'll run these bolts through the frame and through this, so it'll give it extra support as well. There it is. Now the bottom of this, there'll be a long bolt that goes through the bottom of the trailing arm that'll bolt directly in the bottom of this bag, and then that's the rear bag setup. Once we get the 4-inch block on this rear end, that'll pick the rear end up enough so when I jack this up, it's going to go about right there. If we had a 4-link on this, the rear end would go all the way up here to the bump stop, but since it's a 4-inch block, it's still going to have just a little bit to go. But the good thing is, if I ever did put a 4-link on this and wanted to lay the truck all the way out, then it's set up for that already.